what I've created here is a home budget. This is going to be able to track your various aspects of your home budget. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and walk you through the steps on how to set this up and how to use it. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to come in and activate our spreadsheet. You can choose to put in all your information, just your first name, completely up to you, but you do have to enter something. Once it's activated, we're going to have your setup window pop up. This is where you're going to choose what type of budget or budgets you want to use and put in your bank account information. I've set this up so that the various types of pay periods are represented, so weekly, bi-weekly, semi-monthly, and monthly. If you have multiple incomes in your household and need to use multiple budgets, that's fine, you can do that. Let's go ahead and choose weekly and bi-weekly. Now you can see when I chose use this budget, the tips option popped up. What this is for is for individuals who work in an industry where they have tips as a regular income. We're going to go ahead and select this just so I can show you the functionality of the tips option. Down here, we'll go ahead and enter in some bank account information. And this number represents what is currently in your bank account. Now that we've selected that, you'll be brought to your budgeting overview. We're not going to go over this tab at this moment. We'll come back to it later. So down here you can see we have our weekly, bi-weekly, and our tips weekly budgets. Everything we selected on our setup tab. We can go ahead and select whichever month or months we want to look at, open those up. The first thing we see is that our account balances have been entered. Now these account balances will readjust and move over as the date changes. So once we fall into this week pay period, this amount will move over so that we're not adding it up multiple times through our rolling total. We can come down here and we can enter in expected or scheduled income. So let's say John is expecting a paycheck. We can enter in a description if we want to, don't have to. Let's say he's expecting $500. Sally happens to have some cash on her, so we'll go ahead and enter that. This is money she's anticipating depositing into the bank account. So once we have that, we can come down here and see our tips option. Now with the bi-weekly, we don't have that tips option, simply because we didn't choose that option. Let's come back over here to the tips, and we want to enter in what we're expecting to make in tips. And come over here to the weekly tips option, open up January, and we're going to enter in what we make in a single shift, generally. So this is our average shift amount. Say average for each shift, we make $50. And say on January, we're planning on working a half shift. So we're only budgeting to make $25. Come back over here, we can see that $25 is represented. Now, once we work that date, we'll go ahead and put in the actual amount that was made. So let's say we got lucky and we made $35 instead on that half shift. We come over here and we see that that $35 is now here instead of the $25. Now, once we've entered that in, we can go ahead and move on to our expenses. I'd like to note, these amounts are being added here, but not to this, not to your actual bank account amount. Right now, this budget is set up strictly for budgeting purposes. So what you're entering into this budget is what you expect to have come in, what you're expecting to put into your bank account, and what you're expecting to come out of your bank account. Later on, I'll show you where you put your actual income and actual expenses. Come down here and we're going to put in an expense. So John is planning to pay rent. Again, we can put in a description here, completely optional. Let's say rent is $850. Come down here, Sally is also planning to make a payment out of her bank account. And she's going to pay a utility, and we can go ahead and put in power because that's the utility she's paying. She's expecting to pay $200. Again, you see these numbers are not deducted up here because these are budget numbers, not hard numbers. But they are deducted down here, and our rolling totals are also deducted. Now we come over here to weekly budget and we can do the same thing. Say we have a week, instead of both of our individuals having a weekly income, maybe John instead has a bi-weekly income. So instead of entering on the weekly, we would have entered him over here on the bi-weekly. Once we come over to our ledger, we have a little pop-up window that reminds us to always mark paid on items that have been paid on your budget. The reason for this is once you mark your item as paid, it's no longer being deducted from your budget. Instead, it's now being deducted from your ledger. If you forget to do this, you'll have that deduction twice instead of just once. If you feel like this is something you can remember, you can go ahead and mark "Do not remind me again." If you feel like it's something you need to remember, just hit OK without marking this, and it'll pop up the next time you open up the ledger until you mark it as "Don't show me again." We come in here, and we're going to go ahead and put in a payment. Let's say John is going to go ahead and make that rent payment. It's going to come out of John's bank account. We're going to mark it as rent. You can put in a description if you choose to. I'll go ahead and put in $850. So this amount has physically come out of John's bank account. If we come back over here to weekly, you see that it's now been deducted. A hard number has been deducted from his hard bank account number. Now you can see it's also being deducted twice, which is why that reminder is set up. We need to go in here and mark this as paid. Now that's marked as paid. It's highlighted in green, letting you know it's actually come out of your bank account, but now it's only being deducted once out of his bank account as opposed to on the budget as well. Again, this is, let's say Sally goes ahead and pays this utility bill. Come back over here to the ledger. We'll say Sally is paying it. It's a utility. Power. And the power bill was only actually $200 instead of $250. Gonna come back over here. We're gonna mark this as paid. Now I'd like to also point out you have pending as an option. This can indicate you've made the payment, but it has not come out of your bank account yet, so it'll still be deducted down here. Paid, as I've shown you before, and past due, which will highlight it in red, letting you know that it is now become past due and you need to take care of it. Let's mark this as paid, and you can see once again it's being deducted from her bank account. Now, if we come over here to bi-weekly budget, come over here to overview, we can pull up an overview of our ledger versus our budgeted amount. First, let's come over here. Actually, we'll go ahead and move forward with this. So, let's say we want to look up January. So, right now we don't have any December 2015 data entered. What we can see, however, is at current in January, we have budgeted $850, and we've actually spent $850 on rent. Versus utilities, we've budgeted $250, but we've only actually paid $200, and this will show our balance. If we were to do February, this would move this amount over. It would show us how much of a balance we had left over versus what we budgeted, and then we would be able to see February's information and again March's information. So this gives us the opportunity to see, I budgeted $250 for this category. I had $50 left over, so maybe next month only budget $200, and this will give you a chance to actually start saving money. Our final option is the update charts. This is where you can come in and you have all of your information charted for you. So as we can see, this is how much we've paid in rent. This is how much we've paid in utilities. The same goes down here. We should be able to see, if we select, let's look at, I apologize, I had other information in here, I gotta get rid of that. John and Sally, we can see this is how much John has spent and this is how much Sally has spent. Now, this is just the basics of what this budget has to offer. We're going to take a short break, and the next video will show you how to update your information in terms of category and expense category.